Thank you. The title of my discussion tonight is Cahokia in 2015, Our Common Story. And I would like to talk to you tonight about the city of Cahokia, a prehistoric city. I'm not an archaeologist, I'm not an anthropologist, I'm not a historian. I'm a student of the humanities, and so I'd like to take what we know in the humanities and try to use some of those tools to look at this civilization. And to begin with, I'd like to try to provide some context to try to give us a sense of the way we think about Native Americans in our culture. We tend to see them in terms of dichotomies, the noble savage, the bloodthirsty baking powder image here, the Tonto, the cigarette, the butter. This is a Ralph Lauren ad over here, and that's from Elle magazine. The image that we have of the Native American is a fiction. It's a created, artificial, rhetorical category. And the problem with this is that it inhibits our ability to see our shared humanity. It blurs and distorts our past, and it makes it difficult for us to see our shared future as we move forward. So part of this discussion and part of my background with the NEH group is to try to challenge this dominant narrative that Native American people were egalitarian, mystical. They lived in some kind of a bond with nature. They never overused the resources. They were these sort of peaceful people that really could never exist. Again, this is the fiction that we have. And so if you look at Cahokia, if you look at who these people were, they do challenge this dominant narrative, because the people who came to Cahokia were urban dwellers. They were sophisticated engineers. They were astronomers. They also overused their resources. They had a socially stratified society in which there were elites and there were everybody else. And finally, I want to talk about the dominant narrative of our culture. And that seems to be one of never-ending progress. It's just going to continue like this forever. We're just going to keep getting richer and smarter and healthier, and the world's going to get better and better. And I'm afraid that if the lessons of the humanities and the lessons of history bear out, we probably won't have such a never-ending progress story. So the story of the Cahokians begins in what's known as the American Bottom. And this is the confluence region of the Illinois River, the Mississippi River, and the Missouri River. This was a sliver of land in the center of the continent, and around 1050, it underwent a big bang, and it experienced a rapid increase in population. People came from all around to be a part of this. There's four main parts: the Cahokia, the East St. Louis site, the St. Louis, and then the Mitchell site there. Those were complexes that had large populations, and there were cities of mounds and plazas. So at the center of this Mississippian universe, that's what this culture is known as, these people who settled in riverland areas, you can see that they kind of dominated a fairly wide sphere of influence, radiating out as far as Louisiana, Florida, Oklahoma, and as far north as Wisconsin. And the Big Bang drew people there. What was it that drew people there? Perhaps it was a prophet, perhaps it was a vision, perhaps it was some kind of new spiritual insight. We may never really know the answer to that question. Timothy Pocketat, in his book Cahokia, Ancient America's Great City on the Mississippi, says, at one time there were more than 200 packed earth pyramids or mounds at Cahokia and its suburbs. More than half of these were built in a 5 square mile zone that was designed with reference to the 4 sacred directions and the upper and lower worlds. Pyramids were arranged around a vast open plaza and were surrounded in turn by thousands of pole and thatch houses, temples, and public buildings. At its height, Cahokia had a population in excess of 10,000, with 20 or 30,000 more in the outlying settlements that ranged for 50 miles in every direction. And this is an artist's rendering of what Cahokia might have looked like. I just want to make a couple of points. Number one, the word Cahokia is a misnomer. There were no people called Cahokians. The reason why this place has that name is because when the French asked about these mounds, the people who happened to be there were called Cahokian, which is a part of the Illinois tribe. And so the name kind of stuck. The other thing that I want to point out just briefly here is the word mound. I don't know about you, but when I hear that word, I'm not really inspired, right? I don't really think of this massive engineering project that required, untold amount of hours in planning. The image right there that we have is a huge earthen pyramid structure. And this is what the artist imagines village life would have been like. Traders, artisans, and as you can see from up on high, the elite lived in that upper realm. In many ways, Cahokia itself was a material manifestation of the people's cosmology. The largest mound here in the image is Monk's Mound, and we will talk about that in a moment. But the idea was, from the best that we can gather, that the authority was granted from the sky god. And so, just like in Western religion, we have tall cathedrals that spire up into the heavens to try to connect man to this divine realm. So did the Cahokian people. They built this mound as the centerpiece of a planned capital city. This was a new way to live. There weren't cities before this. And as far as we can tell from the archaeological evidence, they didn't have any kind of contact with the people in Mexico. So this was something that these people did of their own accord without any kind of game plans or blueprints to follow. Again, this kind of undercuts many of the stereotypes that we have about these people. If you compare Monk's Mound to some of the other large pyramid structures in the world, you'll see on the far left, that is the Pyramid of the Sun from Mexico. Right next to it is small, that's the pyramid at Chichen Itza, which is also in Mexico. The green one, that is Monk's Mound, and to the right, that is one of the Egyptian pyramids, Cheops. And so you can see what an undertaking and what a massive piece of architecture that this truly was. This is from the Cahokia Mounds Interpretive Center, and this is a diagram to try to help us to understand the scope and the size of something like this. So imagine that you are a villager in Cahokia, and your job is to plant corn, but also to scoop up baskets of earth and pile them up onto the huge earthen pyramids that we're designing. And the pyramid, these were actually built in stages, so this wasn't a 167-year project that took place, consecutively. It kind of happened in fits and starts. But just to kind of put it into some context, an average pickup truck holds about 96 cubic feet of dirt. If you used the pickup trucks to pile up the amount of dirt that you have at Monk's Mound, it would take 229,166 pickup truck loads to equal this amount of dirt. That's kind of amazing. This is what it looks like today. It is the largest earthwork in the Western Hemisphere. It is over 100 feet high. It's 14 acres at its base. It was the center of both political and religious function. We know that on top that a high priest lived and that there were public ceremonies that were presented to the people below. The last phase of the mound is believed to have been completed around 1200. And the theory is that by this point in the city's history, people were beginning to drift away. That the elite class had lost its political authority, and this was a last-ditch attempt to try to convince people, hey, you better stay here with us, otherwise, who knows what's going to happen, right? This is another artistic rendering, and I wanted to show this because I think that it encapsulates this sense of social stratification, which is an issue that we deal with. We talk about wealth inequality, and we talk about more and more money going to fewer and fewer people. This image also kind of echoes that idea. We see the common people living in these thatched roofed houses on the ground, and then you see the large mound structure. It seems to have a midpoint and then a exclusive top realm above. This may have been one of the principal causes that led to the eventual abandonment of Cahokia. Another thing that may have led to this abandonment is also evidence in the Mound 72 burial excavation. We see an elaborate burial of a very high elite member of the priestly class. The artistic drawing on the left, you can see that depicts human sacrifices that were interred along with this person's body. The picture on the right, there were over 800 unused but finely crafted arrowheads that were also put into the gravesite as well. Now, not all of the mounds are grave sites. Some of them are. Some of them are used. Some of them were platform structures. But this gives us a sense of the kind of opulence that would have accompanied a member of the elite ruling class in Cahokia. If you were a commoner, like you and I, we're going to get buried outside the city wall, and we're not taking anything with us to the other life. This was a very different experience for these people. What else can we talk about that we may have in common with these people? Cahokian people loved sports. In fact, they played a sport called chunky. And I know it's kind of a silly sounding name for a sport, but the game was played by rolling on its edge those discs. And the idea would be then, as you can see in the right-hand image here, that other warriors or other players would then throw their javelins and try to land their javelins as close to the chunky disc as possible, trying to land it where the chunky disc stopped rolling. So if you kind of combine the idea of horseshoes, except for the horseshoe stake is moving and we're all moving, trying to get as close to it as we can with our pitches, that's kind of what chunky was. In the bottom left-hand corner here, you see an artifact which was recovered in Oklahoma, but it is an image of a chunky player rolling his chunky stone out onto the playing surface. And in the bottom quadrant over here, you see a painting by George Catlin. These are Plains Indians. These are Mandan Indian peoples in the 1830s playing a game kind of similar to chunky. They actually called it chunky. There's kind of a pronunciation, a spelling of it right there, which is very similar to this game. So they love their sports. Around 1200, there is evidence of a wall that is being rapidly built at great cost in terms of labor and in terms of forest. 20,000 trees are used to line up and create a boundary between the inner ceremonial part of the city and the outer, where everybody else lives, part of the city. There's evidence that it burned down 3 times and it was quickly rebuilt. Here's another image of kind of an aerial view. You can see that dark line around the outside of the inner part of the city with Monk's Mound at the center there. That is that's the wall there. What does that wall say? Does that say that they were trying to keep people out? Was this a wall to divide the social classes? Was this a wall to keep out invaders? It seems like the city would be large enough that there wouldn't be anybody, with enough people to to pose any threat here. So the wall becomes kind of a question mark. At a great cost in terms of timber and labor, what was it for? What did it do? As far as the Cahokians' ability to understand the solar calendar, they created what is known as the American wood hinge, which is a series of cedar posts that are arranged in a circle. And if you look from that center post and you line it up with the outside corresponding post at the spring and fall equinox, it will point exactly to the spot on the horizon where the sun is going to come up. And it comes up over Monk's Mound at the spring equinox. So this is a further evidence that this city was in fact a material manifestation of the cosmology of the people. And embedded in that idea is going to be the source of political power. That in order to maintain control over people, to get them to plant corn and to work on these public works projects, they have to believe that we're deriving our power from the sun god itself. Well, we know that it didn't last, and perhaps this is why it's such an intriguing historical event. Perhaps the Cahokians were victims of their own success. More people came, planted more corn, more trees were cut down, and that unleashed this sort of cycle that led to deforestation, increased silt buildup in the creeks and flooding. There's geologic evidence that around 1300 there was an earthquake along the Madrid Fault. Maybe shook things up, and people believed, hey, I don't know if this is where it's at anymore, let's get out of here. There was also a climate change event. Around 1250, the Little Ice Age began, and there was cooling, and that may have made crop output diminished. It seems possible that the spiritual authority of the ruling class was somehow undermined, as well as the political authority, resulting in an abandonment. So by 1350, there was no one there anymore. Biologists tell us that we're on the verge of another mass extinction on our planet. That scientists warn us of the coming of global climate change, the looming water shortage. The Cahokians did this on a scale that would be minuscule compared to what Western civilization has done. And so the point that I want to make is that we need to find common ground with the people who lived here before us. Just like the Big Bang that drew all the people to Cahokia, we need a radical new way to organize our lives and to understand our place in the world. And if we fail to see the common humanity of the people who lived here before us, then this cycle of history will repeat itself. Thank you.